everybody. My name is Raze Chaos. You have made it back to my channel, and I certainly do appreciate you. And today, we are going way back to 1963 with one of the OGs. Well, I mean, I say OGs, but there was a 60s really isn't the old guard. Very sorry for all you Marvel fans, because that's where most of Marvel's characters came from, with the exception of the original Human Torch, Namor the Submariner, and Captain America. Yeah, they've very few Golden Age characters in the Marvel universe, but this is the beginning of the Silver Age with Robotman, and like I said, created in 1963, was originally well, he came out, and one of the funny things is the creators didn't even know at the very beginning. Initially, they called him Automan, but then quickly they switched it up to Robotman. Now, the original Robotman in the 1940s was a character who he was a robot with a human brain. Exactly like Robotman Cliff Steele here. It was, but the crazy thing is the guys, even though it was the same company, did not even realize that they already had a character like that. But we're going to go ahead and put this guy away, and we're going to talk about Robotman. We're going to talk about Cliff Steele. So this version is the version from the Doom Patrol TV series, which is really cool, and I'm glad we finally got some Doom Patrol guys, because outside of Beast Boy, we really didn't get any at all for the longest time. Beast Boy being actually originally a member of the Doom Patrol, and then changing his name to Changeling in the early 80s and becoming a Teen Titan. Robotman actually even made appearances during that period of time, when there was no Doom Patrol at the time. He would come back and visit Beast Boy, because that was the closest thing Beast Boy had to family. And that shows you how tightly knit the original Doom Patrol was. And yeah, Robotman has been the staple of Doom Patrols from the very beginning. Because the whole thing was a group of misfit people that were considered freaks, and they were led by Niles Calder, who was a man in a wheelchair, and yeah, sounds like somebody got in trouble. It doesn't help that, and really the Doom Patrol and the X-Men came out so close together. Like, it's almost impossible to not think that that one didn't rip off the other. As to which one came out first, I'm gonna let you figure that one out, because I don't want to get in trouble. But yeah, Robotman was the very first, and obviously the original Doom Patrol did not last long, and they were essentially blown up off of on an island, and the only one to survive the whole thing, which is funny to say that, because eventually you find out that only one of them actually died from that, of the group, because basically you had Robotman, you had Niles Calder, you had Negative Man, and Elastigirl, and essentially General Immortus got them stuck on an island and then dropped a bomb on it to blow it up. And the only person that was essentially found and brought back almost immediately was Robotman. Why? Because he's a freaking human brain inside of a robot body. It's like, yeah, he was pretty much the one that was most likely to survive, because as long as the brain survives inside that helmet. I mean, the helmets are obviously got some life-sustaining parts to it in order to keep the brain alive in the first place. And everybody else totally died and did not come back way later. Well, maybe Elastigirl didn't come back way later. Yeah, it was really they really kind of belittled the original demise of the Doom Patrol, because when they did bring them back in the 80s, or bring Doom Patrol back in the 80s, Robotman was the only member of the team that had been on the previous team. And yeah, it was one of those things where, and then throughout that series, you slowly found out that Niles Calder was still alive. And then the later series with Grant Morrison, he brought back Negative Man, even though there was a Negative Woman on the previous team. And it all got really, really weird. It got really, really convoluted trying to put this back together. And of course, you put Grant Morrison, who everybody knows I'm not a big fan of, and he just saw his opportunity to get even weirder. And Doom Patrol was the one where he really got to flex his weird muscles. And a lot of that is brought on to the into the TV show, and and honestly, I won't say that it's bad. It definitely helped distinguish it from its automatic comparison to the X-Men, and gave them their own identity when everybody else was just like, you know what, too many people are comparing the whole situation, so let's just blow up this team and pretend it never existed. And we'll bring Robotman back. We'll bring back Cliff Steele, and he can turn up in the new Teen Titans every once in a while. And yeah, it was a way of clearing that off. And that, in my opinion, he did do a good job of keeping the name of the Doom Patrol alive. I mean, it did consistently get weirder, and what I always loved about it is Robotman has been with the team pretty much from the beginning. I think those first couple issues they called him Automan before they switched his name to Robotman. But he has been in nearly every incarnation of the Doom Patrol since it was created. And if he wasn't an active member of the team, he was an active supporting cast member of the team. And he's really the glue that keeps it. It's like he is Mr. Doom Patrol, no matter how you look at it. And I think part of the reason they were doing it is because you had a former race car driver who was in an accident and almost died. And then Niles Calder comes around and saves his brain and puts it in a robot body. And I think the thing that really is the measure of how weird the Doom Patrol got is, you have this former race car driver as with his brain inside of this robot. He's a robot with a human brain, and progressively he becomes the most normal person on the team. He's the rock, he's the solid anchor for the entire team, because everything else gets so weird and just goes into all different directions. I mean, there are very few teams in comic books, very few superhero teams that can actually list a location as one of their members. Yes, one of their members was actually a location and not a person. But we're gonna go ahead and take this guy out and have a look at him. And here we've got Robotman. We've got Cliff Steele himself. There are a couple of little details that the Pop actually gets very correct, in my opinion. And primarily it's because, based on the TV version, Brandon Fraser plays Cliff Steele in the TV show, and it was really that it was really one of his saving graces, because when he was gone for a long time, they started bringing him back. When he played Cliff Steele, he was able to really get back into it, I think. But the big problem is how do you play a robot with a human brain? And so they put a gigantic helmet on him. So yes, technically the pop looks about right, because they didn't really, that basically he looked like a guy with a big helmet on his head. And I would have liked it better if his head was smaller in the show, to make it look like more of a being with a human head, rather than a guy wearing a big ass helmet. I think that was like really their biggest trip up there. But it did manage for him being the most normal person that was going on in that show, and it was a great role for him to take, and he really played it well. Even though it was exaggerated, they exaggerated some of Cliff Steele's stereotypes, but also at the same time, being as how they're trying to make a modern show, they had to make Cliff Steele not as old as having been created in in the early 60s. You could go back a ways just having a human brain inside of a robot, but I don't think they wanted to go back quite that far, because that essentially helps make him a timeless character. Because no matter what time era you're putting him in, when you have like a set start point, like how long are they able to preserve his brain inside that thing? But yeah, super strength. They've explained it several different ways in the comics. He doesn't feel anything like you or I would feel as far as being touched and everything. However, he has been giving so many other senses or sensors in his system. There's a great little bit in, I think it was Teen Titans Spotlight, where Cliff Steele is playing pool with the Beast Boy, and he makes every ball on the break. Like basically, he breaks, and all the balls go in, and he explains that he has sensors in the tips of his fingers, and you've essentially got like a brain telling a robot what to do, and therefore it was easy for him to not only calculate how hard he had to hit it, but he knew exactly where to hit it in order to make all the balls go in and essentially win the game on the first stroke. So while he doesn't have normal senses, he does have sensors that act as senses around him, and that probably sounded a lot more confusing than it needed to be. But anyway, I am happy that I actually have. I don't even know that they've ever made a Robotman action figure. So I think this is the first time anybody's ever been able to get it, and to have a character that's been around since the 60s to only recently get his own. I can understand them not having him in a TV show up until now, which it was really kind of a big deal when they did the Doom Patrol TV series, and you knew that was this is for the fans, because this show is going to be based on a comic book that was so odd that only a hardcore DC fan is going to check this thing out, which is kind of what helped it in the success that it had, but it's also the same thing that hurt it, because it was just too weird for a lot of people. But it ended up existing, and while I didn't watch the entire series, I did watch enough. My biggest problem was that they based a lot of it off of Grant Morrison being weird, and when you have the first layer being Grant Morrison being weird, and then a bunch of new people coming in and trying to tell stories out of that, then it goes even further into the weird, and it doesn't even match up the weird that was originally there. So it just makes it a lot harder to follow when you start in weird and then you get different weird on top of that. You get chaos. And it's not necessarily the kind of chaos that is good chaos, like Raze chaos. Yeah. Okay, yeah, I've not slept, obviously. But yeah, Cliff Steele. I am curious as to how many people knew about him before the TV series. That is, I believe it's still on HBO Max. If you want to check it out. Hashtag not sponsored. But yeah, it's a really cool look. It's a really cool character, and I love that his hinges bust out his jeans. But it's really solid. I'm happy to get a Doom Patrol. I'm happy to get Doom Patrol figures at all, because they were always the weird bunch, and they were always kind of outside everything, just like a bad version of the X-Men. But thankfully, they got their own identity and became a good version of the Doom Patrol, which is always the best option of all of them. But yeah, I'm going to go ahead and ramble. I'm going to stop rambling on here for a second. Go ahead and give me a like on this video if you've enjoyed it. You know, Raze doesn't just show off the pops. He likes to go on about the characters because he's a big DC geek, really into the history of comics in general. Loves to talk about it because for the longest time he would get beat up if he talked about it. And now he's going to do it on the internet where people can't touch him. So I'm going to go ahead and get out of here now. I hope you have a great day. Let me know if you are a fan of Doom Patrol. And like I said, if you knew about the Doom Patrol even before the TV series, or if you've even read the Doom Patrol. I'd love to hear any information on your experience with the Doom Patrol. So I want you to have a great day, and never forget that life is full of odd moments. You never know when you're going to be defined.